What's up? My name is Eric Butler. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back, and this is a video called New York City is Doomed. Here's why, from Cash Jordan's YouTube channel. And I've watched a handful of this guy's videos in the past. I don't believe him to be political at all. In fact, I think his channel is built to rent apartments for him, his agents, his company, whatever he's got going on there. I don't think this is the best way to get that done, but at least he's honest. He says, New York is a great city, but is it headed in the wrong direction? I live and work here and I've got no plans to leave, but I do hope things on the ground in New York City start to get better. So he does sort of have the harsh clickbait title that the city is doomed, then kind of cleans it up a little bit in the description saying, well, is it headed in the wrong direction? And then for him to say, I've got no plans to leave, leads me to believe that he knows most people are fleeing and he probably should, but his life, his family, his work is all there, so he doesn't really have an out. I mean, he could do it if he wanted to. There's a lot of people stuck in New York who can't get out. He could do it, obviously, if he really wanted to, but he's making a living and there's no reason to, so he's just going to deal with it and hope that things get better. Let's see what he has to say.
New York City is not exactly perfect, but it just got worse.
Okay, so this video was posted on March 26, 2023, and New York was absolutely terrible when I left in the fall of 2020, and I said at that time, if they were to do everything correctly, you know, elect honest people, which is impossible, spend the taxpayers' money appropriately, which is impossible, if they did everything properly, they were still looking at a decade-long cleanup to fix what the city had become. And naturally, it's only gone in the opposite direction since that day, and there doesn't seem to be any way out of it, right? Like, I mean, they're punching their way out of a wet paper bag. It's all collapsing. It's falling apart. They're trying to put back a broken glass. You know, it doesn't work. You're only going to hurt yourself trying to fix this place. You got to just get up and leave.
Way worse. Here we are in Midtown, New York City. It's a great city, but right now it's got a lot of problems that some people would say are self-inflicted.
Absolutely, right? I mean, maybe not self-inflicted by the people, but the politicians are foisting it on people, and they're too brainwashed to realize that they keep voting against their own best interests. So I guess that's sort of self-inflicted in a way.
Overall crime in New York City is up 31% from 2019, which is the highest it's been in 15 years. Murders are up 33%, burglaries 45%, and robberies 29%. Look at this, a couple days ago, somebody set a police car on fire just a few blocks south of where we are right now.
So clearly, maybe not clearly, but excuse me, I assume that he is making more money on YouTube than renting apartments, because he can't show his face on YouTube every single day talking about, I mean, look, he shows apartments and good ones, bad ones, and everything in between, but clearly this is more profitable because you can't just be downing the city, explaining how terrible it is, and then try to rent to somebody. So I think this is the point where he's understanding that he's gonna be more profitable making YouTube videos about how terrible the city is rather than trying to trick people into renting incredibly overpriced apartments in that very same city.
The suspect is described as being white with blonde hair, wearing a black backpack and a blue hoodie and a black jacket, so it's definitely not me. And look at this, an hour ago, police encountered a suspect a few blocks away, and they are barricaded in their apartment, and the streets closed off. Now, this is a big city, so certain amounts of mayhem and pandemonium just come with the territory. But statistically, there's more of it going on now than there was just a few years ago. And you know where it's really gotten bad? Down here.
YouTube TV has no hidden fees and includes unlimited DVR space. YouTube TV, try it free.
Mark my words. Another one.
The Genesis G70. Intelligence outside.
Yeah, and just for the record, obviously, I'm never going to pay for YouTube Premium. It's just not going to happen.
The year started in January, crime in the subway was up 22%. And it was at this point that the city decided enough was enough. They had to beef up security so that people would feel safe enough to use this thing, which the city kind of needs to operate. Security guards, police, cameras, just an overall security presence. And the trick was to give out tickets for things like fare evasion, a step in the right direction, disorderly conduct, smoking, basically any and all minor infractions. See, we've got some security guys over here watching the gate right there on the side. Usually these gates are where people sneak in without paying. And just that by itself, the fact that people can come in here without paying means that they could be in here for a purpose that doesn't involve taking the train, which is what it's supposed to be for. You took the subway today?
I did, for the first time in a long time.
For the first time in a long time. What is it that brought you back?
Well, it is the quickest and cheapest way to travel in New York, but I had a recent injury.
It's not always the quickest though, right? You just never know. Like when I was in New York, bro, you kind of had a 50-50 chance. Like you get stuck in one of those tunnels, they're talking about medical emergencies or signal problems. And it's not even close to 100%. You're looking at like, you on the way back home from Manhattan into Brooklyn, it's like you'll probably get there. You'll most likely get there. And for whatever reason, the evening commute was always much harsher, I should say, than the morning commute. And the subway surfers and all that stuff, that wasn't even happening when I was there. I don't think I saw one story of a subway surfer, but now it's happening like every other week. I saw a clip just the other day of these guys. I mean, not just standing on top of the train, but running on top. And one of them looked like he had a broken arm, as though he had been doing something else stupid. But I digress. That's beside the point.
So I couldn't travel for a bit. But before that, too, I just found it less safe and less pleasant and a lot less clean. I'm not sure that that's really improved a lot. Because of my dissatisfaction with the subway, I used to think nothing of just going round trip on the subway. Now, quite often, I will take it one way and go out of my way to walk the crosstown blocks to take the bus back so I get the free transfer, just because I feel like the MTA doesn't deserve double my money.
That's a New York City life hack. Yeah. The free transfer. There you go.
It sounds like you're kind of spiting yourself to spite them, but whatever.
Oh, you're welcome. Subscribe. I've got more coming. The number of summons given has increased 76%. 10,000 extra tickets have been given out. That's a lot. And the reason this is
Will anybody pay any of those tickets? Doubt it. People don't even pay to get on the train itself. You think they're going to pay a ticket? Do you think the person who hopped the turnstile, who couldn't even be bothered to pay the $3 or whatever it is to get on the train, is going to pay a summons? Absolutely not. And of course, there's no consequences for any of it, right? Shout out Rudy Giuliani and the broken windows theory from the 90s.
Controversial is because not everyone thought that cracking down on all types of crime was going to stop or prevent major types of crime. They thought it might actually make it worse by loading the subway with more cops. But surprisingly, there's been a reduction in all categories of subway crime.
Only idiots thought that loading the subway with cops was going to make it worse. Those were just weirdo extremists who have been brainwashed by media propaganda and, activists, right? Nobody thought that loading more cops onto the subway was going to make it worse. How? I mean, I guess maybe if the NYPD is completely corrupt, which is quite possible, but come on, it's a stretch.
Except burglary. Where like your phone, your watch, your valuables, where that stuff gets stolen. Keep your phone in your pocket. And at a minimum, keep your eyes open because you never know what could be happening at any moment. There's a lot of traffic on the platform. You could wind up on the tracks. A great safety tip is to do this. Stand with your back to something or up against an object like one of these barriers. That'll stabilize you in case you get bumped because
that's obviously a good tip, but think about how dark that is that you even have to say that. Like, make sure you lean against something so a crazy person doesn't push you on the tracks, right? It obviously makes sense, but that's how low the bar has gotten.
That is a long way down. But even though there's increased patrols and things seem to be working, it might be too soon to celebrate. The New York Times did a piece on how...
Shout out Cash Jordan for not paying to get behind the New York Times paywall.
Female subway ridership has continued to decline, and that makes sense. Mobility is a big issue for a lot of people. And look, this is my wife, this is my daughter right here. They're not even able to get into most subway trains because of the stroller. And since she's got these two cute little girls with her, I'm happy that she's not adventurous enough to want to take the subway, especially now. There's not that many elevators, the staircases are long, they can be kind of dangerous, the escalators are super narrow. It's really tough to get around unless you've got two legs and you're by yourself.
Imagine being in a New York City subway elevator, though. That has got to be just brutal. I can't imagine when we get to when the AI gives us smell-o-vision how we're going to take in that content. It's probably just as bad as San Francisco. A New York City subway elevator, yikes.
One of the things that people have a question about is whether or not the subway is safe. What do you personally feel? There's no wrong answer.
I'd rather take my e-bike everywhere, to be honest.
Oh, you ride bikes too?
Yeah.
My man, man. Smart man right here. Randy, you're a photographer here in New York?
Yeah.
If people want to see the city, they should follow you?
Well, if you want to see anything, you should follow me.
PG-13, right?
Definitely.
But even though subway crime is uniquely New York City because it's one of the few major cities with a subway like this, there are other types of crime that have fallen out of favor everywhere else in America but are actually on the rise here, if you can believe that.
Looking for a slice? Craving something cheesy? Or just a delicious break from the outdoors?
That's a bank, believe it or not. And look at this. 42% increase in bank robberies. That's what New York City is experiencing right now. That's crazy. Bank robbery. The old smash and steal the cash. Recently, a TD...
The bank robberies, though, think about that. On top of the smash and grabs of just, you know, designer handbags, on top of the petty theft out at CVS and Walgreens and Dwayne Reed, stuff like that. On top of all that, they're experiencing a surge in bank robberies as well. So I don't know how this guy plans to continue to rent apartments. If one of his clients sees this videos, they'd have to be like, why on earth would I live here?
Bank in Midtown was robbed. They got $760. It's not exactly what you think of when you think of a bank robbery. Recently in...
But that's crazy too, because in New York, that's like low risk and low reward, because they know there's no consequences, but you don't even get $800. That's low risk, low reward. How desperate do you have to be?
Queens, robbery suspects hit 3 banks in 1 hour. They got $1,200 from a Citibank, no money from a Ponce bank, and then they got $230 from the final bank. That really is not a lot of money for what you'd consider to be a high dollar potential crime. And to me, it doesn't make any sense at all why this type of crime is going up in New York. In the 1960s, bank robberies would bring in about $38,000 on average for the criminals, but in 2019, the average was about $4,200. And that figure from the 60s is inflation adjusted. So to find out why this was happening, I asked the Microsoft Bing chatbot, and it told me that bail reform was a possible reason. That's a law in 2020 that ended
The Microsoft Bing chatbot cited bail reform.
Cash bail for nonviolent offenses. And then look, it told me where there was a nearby TD Bank without me even asking, in the exact same sentence. I asked it why bank robberies are up, and it told me that where there was a bank. But look at this. Apparently one of those Brinks ATM trucks was hit for $300,000. And according...
That's incredibly dangerous. That's some dead presidents, you know, type stuff, like a Brinks truck. I guess so. I mean, you got to obviously be very ready, willing, and able to shoot it out if you're going after a Brinks truck, bro.
To the New York Post, this guy ran off with the money. So in New York, when one type of crime goes down, another type goes up. It's very interesting. It's like a seesaw, and that's because the city doesn't have the resources to cover all of the problems that are happening here simultaneously.
I think they do have the resources. They could have the resources. They choose not to, because somebody is benefiting from the managed decline of America's largest city.
The reason there's so many police cars on this street is because we're by the Midtown precinct on 30th and 7th Avenue. And one of New York's problems is that they have a massive shortage of police. This is actually an undercover. Look at that, you can see little lights right there under the bumper. My PD parking badge. And according to the New York Times, officers are leaving because of low pay and high levels of work. And I was actually shocked to find out that if you become a cop today and you drive this thing, your pay is $42,500 a year. That's it.
That's absolute insanity, because there was an article from a couple of weeks ago that said if you make $100,000 in New York, it's like making $36,000 in several other cities, many other cities. So for a cop of all people to make $42,000, it's absolutely nothing. It's not worth it for them, and that is a huge part of the reason why the city is devolving into absolute nothing.
For 5 years, most officers make around $85,000 a year. That's definitely a lot better, but there's no way you're going to rent any apartments near where you might work. You have to make 40 times the rent to qualify. So at $40,000, you're looking at $1,000 a month. There is nothing for that price, not even a bedroom. So yeah, if you're not going to pay people enough to live here and do their job, it kind of makes sense that the only people who can consider it are people who already live with family. Maybe they live in like an inherited rent-stabilized apartment or a home that's been in their family for many years.
Lying.
I'm lying. No, I'm not. If you were to raise the pay, you might have more people that are willing to become police. Is that the right decision? Mayor Adams thinks that that's the right move, and he's got a sneaky way to get the money that a lot of people are upset about.
Bro, you guys can, they're charging 3.5% city on top of the state and the federal. Where's the money going? It shouldn't really even be that difficult. They don't pick up the trash. And then they want to pay $5 million to a Hollywood ad agency to get more cops in the building. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just never enough for these people.
Camera stuff. There's an iPad in there. Cool. Nice to meet you. So the mayor thinks the money for the police is here at the library, somewhere in this massive, beautiful building. The mayor's goal is to reduce funding to libraries to free up money for other things. There are more than 200 libraries in the city, and this one here by Bryant Park's probably the biggest and the prettiest. Libraries.
The thing is, they can take the money from the libraries or whatever it is, and we still know that nothing's going to get fixed. Nothing's going to change. You're just going to have worse libraries, right? And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I guess a handful of tourists and maybe some homeless people hanging out in these libraries, but we all know that the money's not going to get to where it needs to go. It's going to get siphoned through the pockets of bureaucrats all over the place, and there's still going to be no cops. There's still going to be trash all over the place. There's still going to be violence. There's still going to be crime, and then on top of that, these beautiful libraries are going to also devolve into absolute nothing.
Also received 35 million annual visitors. Now I get it. If the city's in trouble and there's money over here that you could use for something else, you might see an immediate reduction in crime. Of course, if you take all the money you have and just pour it into one thing. But how long is that going to happen? Are we still going to be able to have nice things? Some would also argue that defunding things like libraries that might make people smarter could possibly result in lower overall intelligence of the entire city.
Okay, but you guys defunded the police by $1 billion. Where did that money go? Where did you put it? Right? That was 3 years ago, so maybe you shouldn't have done that in the first place instead of destroying the libraries, which again, I mean, obviously not many people are hanging out there outside of some tourists, so I guess it could be worse, but these people, to bring it full circle, I suppose, this stuff is self-inflicted, but obviously it's self-inflicted, right? Because for the 100 millionth time, somebody is benefiting from the demise of this city.
That might lead to more crime. You might be so dumb that you don't even know what crime you just committed. And all these problems that the city has, they're just causing more problems because people don't want to come to their offices. And apparently work from home is costing the city $12 billion per year in lost revenue because big office towers like this are not always being used. And all that foot traffic for restaurants, for local stores, trendy hats and scarves, it's not here what it used to be. Apparently the average worker spends $4,700 a year on stuff. They spoke to one food truck owner who said if it's a Monday or a Friday, there's no point in even being open. That wasn't the case just a few years ago, and it doesn't look like this is going to reverse itself at any point in the near future because the city itself isn't as inviting as it used to be. These are graphs of some of the biggest office buildings in the city, and when they're busiest, they all kind of have a bell curve. Slow in the beginning, then it picks up, and then Friday it's, everyone's home. But even if they fix it and recreate conditions where work from home's not really that big of a deal, it's already happened. It might be too late. It's definitely too late for my company.
Yes, this is his little office. He's shown this before. They downgraded from couple hundred square, like a pretty big office. I don't know. I believe it was like 600 or 800 square feet or something, a pretty big office, downgraded into this little tiny closet with a bunch of keys, right? So he's still doing real estate on one side. And then with the other hand, he's making videos about how terrible the city is. And clearly, I shouldn't say clearly because I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that the videos and the content are far more profitable than renting overpriced apartments in trying to collect these broker fees or these OPs or all sorts of stuff that's just going to be absolutely impossible. Everything's wrapped up in red tape.
These are commission checks, and this is the city's smallest real estate office. We had a massive office, but we downsized. Now everybody works remote. It's got internet, 3 computers, permission to operate, and look, there's even power. Isn't that pretty cool? Lights. And now that work from home is as popular as it is, I can't convince people to come back to an office. So why am I gonna pay for one and try to make that happen again? I'm saving so much money. And if we have to have actual meetings, we could do them out here in the hallway, but WeWork will give you on-demand meetings. So we use their meeting rooms when we need to. Find a good place for this. Maybe here, so if it falls, it doesn't have too far to go. They say that wisdom is always found in the back of a UPS van. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
What do you think? New York City, is it headed up or headed down? Is it flatlining? What do you think?
It might be peaking up.
Might be peaking? Yeah. That's what I hope. That's what I hope.
We'll see for summer 2023.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, so at least the UPS guy is optimistic. He's probably wrong, though, because it's going to take, it's going to take everything they have to crawl out of this absolute disgusting cesspool that it's become. And I don't have hope for it. As dark as that sounds, nobody's going to fix it. It's corrupt all the way to the top. Everybody just wants their piece, and they're going to pretend like, oh, we're going to fix this, we're going to fix that. Eric Adams talking about they have dumpsters now, so they're going to get rid of the rats or whatever. It's all completely fake. Nothing's going to change for the better. It might change for the worse. But shout out Cash Jordan. We need more guys like this, I think, because again, he's not political at all, but he's telling the truth. Even though his job is to rent apartments, he's like, the city's absolute trash. And maybe somebody will do something eventually, but I don't see it in the next decade. But thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe.